I'd like to call everybody to order to the May 14, 2019 Greer City Council meeting. And I'm going to ask Councilwoman Booker if she'd lead us in the pledge of allegiance and invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Lord, we come before you now as humble as we know how, again saying thank you for everything that you've done for us. Thank you for our life, our health, our strength. God, we thank you for the city that you allowed us the privilege to live in and to govern. We're asking that you allow nothing to come out of our mouths that are not led and ordered by you. We ask that you direct us, touch our employees, and bless the city's citizens. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Amen.
Next, we have our public forum. We have one person that's signed up to speak. We'd ask that you come forward now. It's Ms. Pamela Brown. Yes. And as a matter of record, if you state your name and your address.
This is my first time speaking. How are you? My name is Pamela Brown. I live at 948 Old Jones Road, Greer, South Carolina, 29651. I would like to know what this industrial building is going to be, what it contains of, and I oppose it because it depends on if they got chemicals. And there's families that live there with children, including myself, so I'm against it. Thank you.
Next, we have the minutes of the April 23rd, 2019 council meeting. I'll entertain a motion. So moved.
Second.
Do we have any corrections, additions? There being none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mr. Griffin?
Yes. We have a special recognition. I'd like to ask Ms. Julie Hunter to come around. Ms. Hunter is a member of Team Greer. She works in the fire department and she's a survivor. We have a proclamation and it reads as thus: Stroke Awareness Month. Whereas ischemic stroke is the leading cause of adult disability and the 5th leading cause of death in the United States, with nearly 800,000 people experiencing a new or recurrent stroke each year. And whereas hemorrhagic stroke, also known as brain aneurysm, ruptures every 18 minutes, 4 out of 7 people who recover from a ruptured brain aneurysm will have disabilities, and ruptured brain aneurysms account for 3 to 5% of all new strokes. And whereas symptoms and the fast warning signs of stroke include face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, and time to call 911, additional stroke warning signs and symptoms include sudden and severe localized headache, dilated pupils, blurred or double vision, pain above and beyond the eye, weakness and numbness, and difficulty speaking. And whereas 80% of strokes or brain aneurysms are preventable if you avoid the 7 risk factors: smoking, high blood pressure or hypertension, family history of strokes. Over age 40, women have increased risk, drug use, and traumatic head injuries. And whereas brain aneurysm survivor Julie Hunter formed the South Carolina Brain Aneurysm Foundation sanctioned support group with the support of Hunt Secure, St. Francis Health System. Cerebrovascular Stroke Council, a member of Prisma Health. Ms. Hunter is also the founding member and group facilitator of the Upstate South Carolina Brain Injury Support Group. Now therefore, Mayor Rick Danner and the Greer City Council be hereby proclaim May 2019 to be Stroke Awareness Month in the city of Greer and urge all citizens of our city to familiarize themselves with the risk factors associated with stroke.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Next thing, we have someone from South Carolina Municipal Elected Officials Institute. There he is.
Good evening, and greetings from Columbia and from the Municipal Association of South Carolina. Mayor Pro Tem Griffin, members of council, Mr. Driggers, Ms. Duncan, Mr. Sell. I want to thank y'all for the opportunity to be here this evening to present what I think is a very significant, and what the association believes is a very significant accomplishment. But before I present you with this recognition, if you don't mind, Mr. Griffin, maybe I could explain a little bit about the Municipal Association and my role with the association, and it'll give this award some context. My name is Jeff Shacker, and I am one of 2 field service managers with the Municipal Association of South Carolina. MASC, everything in government has to have an acronym. MASC is a nonprofit organization based in Columbia. It was established over 85 years ago in the 1930s. And currently, all 271 municipalities, cities and towns in the state of South Carolina are members of MASC. The association was created by the cities in the 1930s, primarily to serve as an advocacy arm for the cities. If you think back to the 30s history lesson, or your history class with the 30s, it was a very difficult period in our nation's history economically. All sectors of the economy were suffering, including cities. And at that time, while it's still somewhat the case, not to the degree it was then, at that time cities were very much dependent on the state of South Carolina for the resources that they needed. And they came to the conclusion when those resources got so scarce in the 30s that, you know what, we could be a lot more effective if we had one voice in Columbia. And that's how the association started. In the 85 years since then, it has grown tremendously. And one of the efforts that the association is focused on very intensively over the last 30 to 40 years is education and training. And while we provide a lot of education and training opportunities for municipal officials, I think the pinnacle of that effort is the Municipal Elected Officials Institute for Government. That is our training program for mayors and council members. It consists of 25 hours of training really over the full gamut of subject matter related to municipal government, everything from forms of government, planning, zoning, budgeting, finance, the Freedom of Information Act, ethics, the entire gamut. And it's for mayors and council members. And Greer has the distinction of all 7 members having graduated this program, which puts them in elite company. We've got about a dozen cities that are in that position now. We established the Municipal Elected Officials Institute about a little over 30 years ago. The first class graduated in 1988. That program has become a model for other states. Other state municipal leagues have put that into place, and while in South Carolina it's a voluntary program, in many states it's mandatory. State law actually requires that local elected officials go through it. Here in South Carolina, like I said, it's voluntary, and your 7 elected officials here in your community, this is a second job for them. They have day jobs, they have families, they have activities like you do in your life that they want to spend their time on, but they also are representing you in local government here in this representative democracy in Greer, and they've made a major investment in trying to learn a little bit more about this second career they've chosen for themselves. Additionally, 5 of the 7 council members have completed an advanced training program that we started back in 2014 and are now working on continuing education. So there's a high level of commitment in Greer to education, training, and professional development within municipal government. So, Mr. Griffin, Council, I just want to again thank you for this opportunity, and I'd like to present you with this recognition from the Municipal Association. Maybe if we could all gather in front of the dais. Mayor Pro Tem Griffin, again, I just want to congratulate you on this tremendous accomplishment. I appreciate y'all your membership in the association. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Next, we'll have the administrator's report. Mr. Driggers.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. A couple of items that we want to offer as reminders and as calendar items to make sure that we have these on your schedule as well. The first is to make sure that we are receiving from you the registration information for our upcoming Municipal Association of South Carolina. Our MASC annual conference will be held in Greenville this summer. It's a unique opportunity for us having that here in our own area. It's a really good agenda. You should have received information concerning the agenda items, the opportunities that are presented as part of that meeting as well. Just want to make sure that you have received a request from Ms. Duncan to get registration information to her. It's a lottery type system that really works well for us this year. I guess the good news and the bad news is, the good news is that we got one of the best positions ever for accommodations in the host hotel. The bad news is we won't be using it. As you know, they do a lottery system to assign hotels for that conference. I think we were number 35 maybe, which guarantees you a spot. But we will have a place that we can relax and sell that. I know, really, it'd be nice if we could just sell that space. But we do want to make sure that you are planning to attend that conference. It'll be jam-packed with useful information. People come to the upstate to hear not only what's happening in the host city, but also what is happening in the cities that are surrounding the host city. So help us be good cheerleaders for Greer during that conference. You do have that registration information. If you can just make sure that you get that to Ms. Duncan, we would appreciate it. We'll get you all signed up, make sure all that's happening. I do want to make you aware that also tomorrow morning we are hosting a press conference here in City Hall. The purpose of that press conference tomorrow morning at 10:30 is for us to roll out our virtual reality tool relative to our Centergy construction project. I left a card at your space as well. That is what we will be promoting. You've had an opportunity during your annual planning retreat to see much of the functionality of our VR instruments, but we want to make sure that you have the new address for that. That is bit.ly/CenterGVR. So you'll see that on the bottom of your card, on your smartphone, on your smart device, on our virtual reality goggles, on your any device that you would have. You would be able to see all of our streetscape project in its entirety through that site. So we'll be rolling this out, introducing it a bit more to our community tomorrow morning. We wanted to make sure that you were aware that that's going to be coming up for us. Also tomorrow, myself and Councilmember Lee Dumas have an opportunity to go over to Chattanooga. We're going to be with Partnership for Tomorrow, visiting that community for an intercity visit. We'll be there Wednesday through Friday. Look forward to talking with members of their local community, members of their Chamber of Commerce, business partners in their downtown area. Partnership for Tomorrow identified Chattanooga as one of those locations that there are opportunities for us to see some of the similarities between what we do and what they do, and how that we could learn a bit from them as well. We've done these site visits over the years, and this is another opportunity. Mr. Davis, glad that you're going to be able to make that trip as well. So a couple of us will be over there with about 15 or so from Partnership for Tomorrow. So good representation from the Greer community as we visit Chattanooga, Tennessee over the next couple of days. This week is a busy week for us. I will be returning on Friday from that trip, and I hope that you will be joining me here at City Park. We have our food truck rollout taking place from 5 until 7:30 here on the grounds of City Park. This is our most well-attended event of the year for the food truck rollouts. This is the one that's happening in the absolute best weather. We have music, we have entertainment, and of course, I think there's about 6 food trucks that are scheduled to be here on the grounds. It'll be a large turnout, it always has been, and we think it's a great opportunity for us to usher in the summer here at City Park. So that food truck rollout is Friday evening here at City Park, 5 to 7:30. And I do also just want to make you aware of a site visit that we have coming here. We have a delegation of about 20 representatives from China that will be in our community on the 23rd. There's a delegation, elected officials delegation that will be visiting with the mayor. So the mayor of one of the cities in China that is the home site of Minghua. So the president and CEO of Minghua, who has an operation in the city of Greer, that president and CEO has invited his mayor of his home city to come to Greer to tour and visit that site, and we will also be doing a delegation visit as part of that as well. We'll have some information coming to you about that, and we would hope that your schedule would allow you to join us for that on that Thursday the 23rd. We'll have more information coming to you on that. Those are the calendar items that I think would hold us until we start to roll into our next meeting on the 28th. There is a holiday in there, and so for Memorial Day, that Monday, our city offices will be closed, but we will operate, obviously, all public safety on regular schedules, and then we'll be back to our normal schedule that Tuesday, which is the day of your council meeting. Any questions, I'm glad to answer for anything that I may have reported, and certainly available after the meeting or any time at your convenience. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Next, we'll have our appointments to boards and commissions. We have opening on the Board of Architectural Review. David Langman's term expires June the 30th, 2019. Also, the historian, Mrs. Gerald Hyatt, has resigned. Her term expires June the 30th, 2021. We have an opening for the GSP, International Airport Environment Planning Commission, and also the Planning Commission, Districts 4 and 5.
Any additional information, Ms. McCormick?
Yes, David Langley on the Board of Architectural Review has indicated he's willing to serve again. Obviously, Ms. Hyatt has resigned. She has moved to a new city, and while we will greatly miss her, I know that we've been speaking to a few applicants in that regard. We should have someone for your recommendations soon. If you have any, we'd love to speak with you about that as well. And then on the Planning Commission, Walden Jones has indicated that he will continue, or would like to continue to serve. And for District 5, I believe Ms. Abetis is vetting some applicants for that as well.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and renominate David Langman. Second.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, yes, Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to renominate Walden Jones for Planning Commission for District 4, please.
Second.
Motion and second. Any others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert, yes. Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
What are on the Board of Architectural Review, that is, there are some requirements for those members, right? So what would, the historian, Joanna Hyatt, that position she vacated, what requirements does that entail?
Yes, so her position as historian or someone that has a knowledge of history of the city of Greer on our board. We do have some members of our community who fit that bill and can serve in that role. Their willingness to serve is kind of what we're discussing right now, if they have the time to dedicate to serving on our Board of Architectural Review. But basically, we're looking for someone that has a historical knowledge of the city.
And they have to be,
They don't have to be a city resident to serve on that board. It's preferred, obviously, that we have someone that's vested in our city.
I know Joanna was, but David is not. David does not sign. How about the Greenville-Spartanburg Airport Environments Committee? Is that just, that's an at-large, correct?
It's an at-large, we make 2 appointments to that board. Spartanburg County does, Greenville County does, and then they themselves have an appointment. We typically would receive a communication from GSP based on their knowledge of the person that's there. I'm not aware that we've received any communication from them at this point, but that is council's appointment. While we may receive communications from GSP, that is entirely council's discretion of who that appointment would be. They're basically going to let you know if the person has been active and has been present for their term of office, and then whether or not they have indicated, the individual has indicated a desire to continue to serve. But again, we remind that that's a recommendation on their part, but completely council's discretion on who that appointment is.
Now we have new business. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So you know I'm a little slow, I like to bid. Next, we have a new business bid summary for Cannon Center acoustical panels. Ms. Cunningham?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. The Parks and Recreation Department solicited bids for a provider of Cannon Center acoustical panels for the replacement. One company attended the mandatory pre-bid meeting on April the 15th, and that company was Bonnet's Contracting Services. Bids were opened on April the 26th, and the bids were as follows. Bonnet's Contracting Services out of Greenville, South Carolina, $17,475, and Precision Walls Incorporated of Greer, South Carolina, $22,161.11. However, Precision Walls Incorporated was disqualified because they did not attend our mandatory pre-bid meeting. We've noticed over the years that the acoustical panels have been experiencing normal wear and tear from constant use in the building, which is affecting the quality of the acoustics during rentals and performances. Replacing the panels, the existing panels with new panels will bring our acoustics back to the quality that we promised our groups. Bonnet's Contracting is a reputable company. They've been in business for over 65 years. We've used them not only here in City Hall and all 3 halls here and in the lobby, but also over at Victor Gym and Needmore Recreation Center. They are able to install the same acoustical panels that currently exist in the building, and we have all the confidence that they'll do a really good job and very professional. Just asking for council's approval to award this bid to Bonnet's Contracting Services.
Okay, we've heard the recommendation from Ms. Cunningham. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion we accept the recommendation.
Second.
Have a motion second. Floor is open for further discussion.
And is that followed in the budget?
It does. It actually came in, we budgeted $10,000 for these panels. And I don't know if it was with misinformation from whoever gave us the quote for when we put our budgets together, or if they were quoting on a different type of panel. We're not quite sure, but when we solicited bids, it came back about $7,500 more expensive. So we went back to our Fund 50 account and made sure that all of our budgeted items were accounted for, and we went into contingency. So with everything being accounted for, we still have about $5,313.70 left in our contingency for the end of this year.
Any other questions? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mr. Griffin?
Yes. Ms. Cunningham has a bid summary for Freedom Blast sound equipment.
Thank you. The Parks and Recreation Department solicited bids for a provider of sound equipment at the City of Greer's annual Freedom Blast event that will be held on June the 29th. One company attended the mandatory pre-bid meeting on April the 8th, and that company was Custom Production Services. Bids were opened on April the 17th, and the bids were as follows. Custom Production Services out of Spartanburg, South Carolina, $12,133. Custom Production Services has provided sound for Freedom Blast for the past 5 years, and they've done an outstanding job. I'm here to ask for your approval so we can award this bid to Custom Production Services.
We've heard the recommendation from Ms. Cunningham. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Floor is open for any further discussion.
Where did that come in as far as budget?
It did. We have an account, we budgeted $10,000 for that, and again, it fluctuates. It came in at $12,133. In that account, again, our band, everything there's a lot of different parts to that budget. So as long as we stay within budget, we're fine, and I think it's based on a small percentage of increase from last year. But we're fine for budget.
Any other questions? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Next, we have first and final reading of Resolution Number 11, 2019. It's a resolution to accept Rockbridge subdivision streets, namely Tatum Lake, Coogan Lane, Wrightwood Lane, Cordell Drive, into the City of Greer street system. Mr. Robert?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Council. So this is Rockbridge subdivision. On your screen should be a picture of the street, an aerial image, and a flat sheet. This project was started beginning in 2017. It is located off Hammock Bridge Road near its intersection with South Plumpton Road. It's in Council District 1. All utilities are in, streets are paved, 10 of 32 townhome units are built. Staff has inspected the construction and believes it meets city standards. Therefore, staff recommends Tatum Lane, length 418 feet, Coogan Lane, length 291 feet, Wrightwood Lane, length of 280 feet, Gardella Drive, length of 156 feet, be accepted in the city street system for ownership and maintenance.
We've heard the recommendation from Mr. Oaks. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Do I have any questions? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have first reading of ordinance number 14-2019. It's an ordinance to change zoning classification of property owned by George and Elena Tributaries located at 14189 East Wade Hampton Boulevard from C2 Commercial District to C3 Commercial District.
Good evening. Thank you very much. So we will have first reading of an ordinance to change the classification of this property at 14189 East Wade Hampton Boulevard from C2 Commercial to C3 Commercial. Just bring your attention to the screen. See, the property in question used to be a used car dealership, and it's been vacant for some time. There you see the zoning map, C2, whereas the rest of the surrounding zoning is C3 Commercial. Planning Commission held a public hearing and voted on this in April unanimously to approve the zoning. That's all I have at this time. Mr. Chairman.
We have the recommendation of Ms. McCormick. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The floor is open for further discussion.
Just glancing over the notes, our planning commission has 7 members, and there were only 3 present.
There were 4 present at the meeting. 1 recused himself
Okay.
due to conflict of interest, so we did have a quorum to begin the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
A great catch, because we had to debate Robert's rules on whether or not a quorum was established when one recuses, and yes. So we did have a quorum to conduct business, and it was appropriate for the individual to recuse for a clear conflict of interest. So, yeah, good catch.
A lot of parliamentarians.
Is this just to improve the marketability of the property, or they have an intended use for it?
They do have an intended use, a car rental facility. Unfortunately, when they were doing a used car lot in C2, that required a special exception, and it was only for that specific use. While car sales and car rental are very similar, and that facility accommodates well to that use, unfortunately, that special exception doesn't translate, so a rezoning is in order in this situation. And all the surrounding property is zone C3, so it certainly seemed like a natural fit.
Any further questions? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
Next, we have first reading of ordinance number 15-2019. It's an ordinance to change the zoning classification of property owned by Clark Nesbitt located at 213 Memorial Drive from R12 Residential Single Family District to OD Office District. Ms. McCormick?
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. This property is located on Memorial Drive Extension. Along the strip there, you've got a lot of houses that have transitioned over time into office, as you see the purple zoning on the screen. Kind of here. And as Memorial Drive Extension has sort of transitioned from a pretty much residential corridor into a mixed-use corridor, the marketability of this property after the passing of Mrs. Nesbitt is that her children desire to sell this property for an office use, and they feel it's more marketable as an office rather than a residence. Therefore, the zoning change was presented to Planning Commission in April, and they recommended unanimously at 4-0 to approve.
We have a recommendation from Ms. McCormick. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. The floor is open for further discussion. There being none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mr. Griffin.
Yes. Next, we have first reading of ordinance number 16-2019. It's an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by 4A Corporation Incorporated located 5251 West Wade Hampton Boulevard by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of C3 Commercial District for said property Ms. McCormick?
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. So our first annexation of the evening is a zoning request and annexation for property at 5251 Wade Hampton. This is kind of on the outskirts of where our city is currently right now. So you're going right past Target to that intersection there. And the property is currently in Greenville County and zoned appropriately for the use. However, the applicant's desire is to annex into the city in order to develop in the city and have the city's development process cover this property. They have requested a zoning of C3, which is certainly in accord, but we will make our recommendation to Planning Commission next Monday on May 20th, and they will hear that as a public hearing. Thank you.
We've heard a recommendation from Ms. McCormick. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion second. The floor is open for further discussion.
Are they using this as a parking lot right now?
That property is somewhat in flux. They have cars there at certain times. Obviously, when this picture was taken, there was nothing there. But it is a field. You see cars there. There is a drive. But when we were there, it was not being used.
I think the business next door has a lot of turnover and high volume of traffic, and I don't think they can park them all in the building next door, and I think they've lined it off and they're using the parking lot right now.
They have an auction going on there from time to time, and we have seen on those auction days people trickling over. Yes, in the back of the property.
So is this associated with that business?
Not currently. Mr. Niemola, Kurt Niemola, may be proposing to do that. We don't have a site plan requirement when they submit a zoning request, as it's not a review district, so the site plan is forthcoming. But it is adjacent to the next annexation case, which is the property directly to the rear. So maybe a larger development plan in play.
Oh, you're saying he's interested in picking up that parcel that's behind this one?
It's
too?
the next request on your agenda.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir. Two separate owners. That's just the reason for the two separate requests.
And we have to do them in this order for contiguity. That's-
Right.
Gotcha.
Do you happen to know what the plans are for that?
We have spoken with Mr. Niemola, and he has commercial development plans, but he has not disclosed a site plan to us at this point, so we don't know exactly what those plans will be.
Business or?
All uses-
It could be office buildings or?
Anything in C3, so I'm sure after the zoning and annexation, if it's successful, then he'll be ready to submit to PAC, and then we'll know more at that point, but he has not given us that information.
Specifically, I would not suspect office. That's a retail location.
Just, can you go back to that zoning map that you had pulled up there? Now, why is the color on this, is the one next door is C2, correct? And then that pink is a C3?
Correct.
And then they're asking for what on this particular parcel?
C3. We typically would see C3 uses along Wade Hampton Boulevard. That's our largest corridor, obviously, with the most intense commercial. The C2 zoning there may have been selected for a less intense use as we expanded our city limits. However, that certainly would also be appropriate for C3 zoning at this point.
That's the automotive facility that's there on the corner.
Trade quarters?
Yeah, I'm trying to recall. I believe I recall that council, that was requested as C2 because of for the type of use. They asked for that zoning prior to submitting exactly what they wanted to do there. Council had some concern about offering the most liberal zoning, which would have been C3 for that site, because you didn't have all the information about what actually was developed there. And as I recall, I believe I'm correct, is that they requested, and you were very supportive of the C2 to avoid what possibly could have been undesirable development as that annexation would continue down Wade Hampton Boulevard. Does that make sense? I mean, it was one of those that there was just some concern about what you did not want to occur, and you went with a more restricted zoning, C2 versus a C3. But to Ms. McCormick's point, if there was a request to rezone from C2 to C3 with everything that has happened in that area, it would certainly be an appropriate request to do so.
This is our land use map, so we've got a transit-oriented corridor there. All commercial uses typically would be acceptable along that corridor. We don't have the same luxury afforded to other corridors, such as Buncombe in the city, where we like to keep C2, but on Wade Hampton, that's where we like to drive that C3 zone.
Whatever goes there will be an improvement over what has historically been there.
We've got some Billy Bob's, but
Toby's.
Toby's?
Yes.
Any further discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mr. Griffin?
Yes. Next, we have first reading of ordinance number 17-2019. It's an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Angeliki Hirosikas located on Skyline Way by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of C3 commercial district for said property. And if anybody want to help me with pronunciation, please feel free.
You did very well.
You did very well.
We struggled at planning commission with that one, or we will, on May 20th. I'll just have to remember how you said it.
All right, Mr. Corbett.
So this property is directly adjacent to the previous request, and it's a little bit different in the sense that it does not have direct frontage on Wade Hampton Boulevard. So in order for them to develop this property as C3 as requested, we will be requiring extensive buffering to the neighbors to the rear. Although those are residences in Greenville County, our ordinance provides for residential buffering, and so we will afford those residents the same protections as though they were in the city limits. Because now that they're adjacent, eventually they could be. So you still have that regional corridor extending back that far into the property. And this is a vacant, basically wooded lot currently in the county. That's all I have at this time.
Recommendation by Ms. McCormick. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second. The floor is open for further discussion.
You just mentioned screening on the rear. How about on the right side of the property that looks like it's residential? It's Fairview Road. I'm assuming we'll have screening there as well.
All sides that have a residence buffering, whether it's across the street or directly adjacent, will be required to have screening. You may have a curb cut if it's on a road, for example, on Skyline, but there will be a buffer of some sort on that road as well.
Oh, okay. Sidewalks on Skyline?
Depending on the site plan, yes, when that time comes, we will certainly ask for sidewalks along the whole development.
What is a typical business in C3?
Automotive, services, retail, restaurant, basically the full gamut of commercial uses, not service industrial uses, but you do have some light service. Full auto repair is allowed in C3, so you would have engine work. That would be your probably most noxious use, I guess, if you had to think about things in those terms.
So I guess when we come up for second reading, we'll go a little bit more maybe about what their plans are for that.
If they have submitted at that point, we would, certainly. At Planning Commission, we'll be glad to share testimony at second reading if the owner presents that information, but they are not required to. I would caution that when they're asking for C3 zoning, they may say it's for this, but they may change to any other C3 use within the allowed zoning.
Just a little concerned about the residents abutting up to that property as to how much lighting, how much noise, interference would be for the residential area.
Yes, ma'am, and our
Be the main
development
thing.
ordinance does a good job of trying to protect those residents as best as possible, but I guess it's all in the eye of the resident who lives there next to it if we do a good enough job of that.
It's evident by size. This is not a small strip center. I mean, this is a large part, this is a combined large parcel.
7 acres.
About 7 acres together, 7 acres, a little bit more together.
But this is very consistent with what's along Wade Hampton now, where you have a lot of neighborhoods that butt right up against C3. And as long as the buffering is in place, there seems to be a And typically, these businesses are normally hit during the day, so it's normally, gives you a little bit of time
Certainly.
for rest in the evenings, which is nice.
The most recent one that we have developing is National Tire and Battery going across from the side entrance to Lowe's, right behind Dairy Queen. So right on the other side of that, you have adjacent residences. And we're establishing 25-foot buffers in place to ensure that those residents are as protected as possible from encroachment of commercial development along the boulevard.
Any further discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Bookert?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mr. Griffin?
Yes. Mr. Driggers, the next one?
Yes, sir. I would like to ask council's indulgence that we would hold over item H, first reading of ordinance 18, 2019, that we would hold that over until after executive session. You will note in executive session, there's an economic development matter. I'm sorry. Yes. There's an economic development matter that we need to have some discussion with council that also impacts this annexation, and we would like for you to have that information prior to asking you for a vote on annexation of the property. So we would like to bring that back up after executive session, but with your permission to hold it over until afterward.
Do we need a motion to hold it over, or we just...
Unless there's no objection, we can do that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem as well, if I may just add, you will note that in executive session, the way that we have listed that is different than we have done previously. In consultation with our city attorney, we have asked for a more expeditious way for us to move through when we have several items in executive session. Instead of requiring a motion, a second, and a vote on each individual item, we have researched and have determined that we can identify each of those qualified items in a single motion. And so, again, being a little bit different, what we would ask for would be a motion to enter into executive session specifically for items 1, 2, 3, and 4 as they are identified, but not requiring 4 separate motions, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
All right, in that case, Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make the motion that council take action on matters discussed in executive session, or acknowledge that we may take action on matters discussed in executive session, make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the following. 1, a legal matter pertaining to the Victor Mill site as allowed by state statute section 30-4-70A2. To discuss an economic development matter pertaining to project Freeman Farms as allowed by state statute section 30-4-70A5. To discuss a personnel matter as allowed by state statute section 30-4-70A1. And to discuss a contractual matter pertaining to Pelham-Batesville Fire Service Agreement as allowed by state statute section 30-4-70A2.
Motion to have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Bookert?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Mr. Griffin?
Yes. We just come back from executive session where we discussed 4 matters and no action was taken. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood?
Yes.
Ms. Bookert?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Yes. Mr. Griffin?
Yes. Last item for business we have tonight is first reading of ordinance number 18-2019. It's an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by Anita Ann Colbert and James E. Colbert and Donald L. Brown and the Witherspoon Group located on Liberty Hill Road, Admin Creek Road, and Freeman Road by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of I-1 Industrial District for said properties. Ms. McCormick?
Thank you. We're working on our technical issue here. In the meantime, this ordinance is to provide for the annexation of 3 parcels. Again, Abner Creek Road, Freeman Farm Road, Liberty Hill Road, surrounding those. And this is for an I-1 industrial zoning. The Planning Commission will conduct a public hearing on May 20th, 2019 for the zoning of these parcels. If you refer to your packet, since we're experiencing a technical glitch, you will be able to see the parcels in question and how they're contiguous to the city is across in the southwest corner. I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Can we get a motion and a second for the purpose of discussion?
So motion.
Second. Okay, floor is open for the discussion. Will there be none? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Earwood?
Yes.
Ms. Booker?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes. If we no further business, we stand adjourned.